This is David Black, and welcome back for another video training session on using browser-based media design tools. Today we're going to learn the basics of Wick Editor, which is an animation tool similar to Adobe Flash. Wick Editor uses a frame-based timeline approach. Although you can create an animation frame by frame, Wick Editor allows you to save time and effort by setting keyframes, then letting the computer calculate the frames in between. This type of interpolated animation is called tweening. Wick Editor also allows you to use simple commands to pause the playback head and then jump from frame to frame. This type of interactivity can be very useful for demonstrating your mastery of science concepts. I will present Wick Editor in 4 videos. This first video is going to be about the basic tools and how to create frame-by-frame and tweened animations. The second video will be about using simple interactivity, how to create buttons with rollover effects and then jump to different places in the timeline. The third video is going to be about more complex interactivity for game programming. And then the fourth video will be about how to incorporate other browser-based software programs like Photopea or SculptGL. In each case, I'm going to show you some practical examples of how to use Wick Editor to demonstrate your mastery of science concepts. Let's get to it. To find Wick Editor, do a basic search. Here it is. When you get into it, launch the Web Editor button. It will ask you to try out the new version of it. We'll just click off of that for now. And then I'm going to close this window by clicking on the little X because we want to start with a blank document. This is the Wick Editor. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, you see the basic drawing tools. The Object Selection tool, Paintbrush, Pencil, Eraser, Square and Circle Object tool, the Line tool. This is a Path Cursor, Text tool, Fill tool, Eyedropper, and then here's your color swatches for picking different colors. Down here are your layer tools. This is where you create a new layer. Here's where you make a keyframe, and then this button, when it lights up, will allow you to do a tween-based animation. And then here are the basic frames on the timeline. These tools allow you to do things like ghosting and then centering the frame, zooming in and out, and playing back the animation. And we'll talk about these tools up here in just a minute. Let's begin then by creating a basic animation. I'm going to start by choosing the brush tool, and then some options come up here. And let's change the color. I'm going to choose, let's pick red. So a basic red color here. I can click off of that. Now on the very first frame here, as I start to draw, let's create a smiley face. I think I want to do like a smiley face logo animation. So I'll begin by drawing a half circle here. I'll just do a little bit of a curve here. Then if I click on the next frame, well, I can't see what I did in the frame before. So if I come over here, I can turn on onion skinning or ghosting and see what I drew before, only in a lighter color. So now what I'm going to do is to try to draw over that best I can, and then go a little bit further. Let's continue the process. Now each time as I do this, I have to try to recreate what I've done before and add a little bit more, each time clicking on a new frame. Trouble is, this is a little bit tedious, and it's hard to match up exactly what I drew before. There's got to be a better way. Instead of doing each frame individually, which is the way they used to do it back in the Disney days when they used acetate sheets and drew on them by hand, let's instead use some of the power of the computer. I'll just take my last frame, I'm going to copy it, so I've got that selected. I can come up here and choose Copy in the upper right hand side. Okay, I just copied that. Go to the new frame and push Paste. Okay, now all I have to do is continue the drawing. I don't have to add on to it. Well, that's not so good. I just did Control Z. All right, so copy and go to the new frame, paste, and add to it. Copy this frame, make a new frame,
and paste. Okay, I've got my half circle. Now let's do the corners of the mouth. There's one corner. Copy. Go to the new frame and paste. Now if I wanted to speed this up even more, I could do Control-C and Control-V. All right, now let's try doing the eyes. So I'm going to do Control-C, Control-V, there it is. And to do eyes, let's use the circle command. But I'm going to put white as the fill color for now. So this one on the right here allows you to pick the stroke color. I've got the stroke set to red, and then I can change how thick the stroke is here. I think I'll make it about 6 pixels wide. That looks about right. So there's one eyeball. Let's copy and paste. And another eyeball. Okay, now I'm going to take this and copy it because what I want to do is animate the eyeballs or the irises rolling around here. So I've copied this, I'm going to paste this into a new frame, and then I'll use the paintbrush to paint in an eyeball. But in this case, let's make red the fill color too. All right, there we go. Instead of copying this frame that I'm on, I'm going to paste in the previous frame that I've already copied, which is the blank eyes. I'm going to put the irises on the side. All right, now I'll paste in the original and make the irises up here. So as I do this, I'm changing the position of the iris each time. Okay, I'll speed this up a little bit. Okay, now I've gone around once. Let's do something interesting here. I'm going to have the eyeballs or the irises go in opposite directions, just for fun. Oops, got a little extra here. I'm going to use the eraser tool and trim that off. All right, we basically got it now. I'm going to try playing this back and see how it looks so far. So I'll click on the play button here on the right side. There's the mouth and the eyes going around and around. Looks pretty good. I have to press the pause button to get it back again. All right, now we could do exactly the same thing using text. I could bring in a letter and then repeat the letter, adding one letter at a time until I get the word that I want to spell. You get the basic idea. Now, I'll just show you how to do text in general here to make it fast. I think at this point I want to make a new layer. This is going to be my smiley face layer. So to make a new layer, I come down to the bottom left-hand corner of the layer toolbar here and choose plus. Now, if I want to, up in the upper right-hand corner, there's the inspector. And I can give this a new name. Let's call this text. And then I'm going to go to first layer and call it smiley. Okay, so I drug the text layer up on top of the smiley layer, as you see here on the left-hand side. Now let's put in some text. I think I'll choose a different color for this, maybe yellow. I'll still keep the red border. And let's put the text underneath it here. Oh, got to click and make a frame. I can write what I want to. Let's say smiley face productions. Then use the selection tool over here on the left-hand side to move it. But that's a little bit hard to see. So I'm going to go up here into the inspector. Let's change the font. So from sans serif, let's choose something like Abril Fat Face. We can change the size of it, maybe make it 48 or something like that. Well, that means we should probably take the text and wrap it around like this. It's a little hard to see that color, so I can come in and pick a different color for it, maybe purple. All right. Now I could just bring in the text one letter at a time if I want to, but I think this will look pretty good just the way this is. Okay, now let's make one more layer. I'm going to bring in a bouncing ball. This is where we'll start learning how to do tweened animation. So far, we've done the rather tedious frame-by-frame style animation, even if we are copying and pasting, which makes it a little bit easier, but it's still harder than it needs to be. I'm going to make a new layer, and let's call this ball. And let's go over here to the frame where the text first starts, right here to create a new frame. And then I'm going to do circle on it. Start by making it small, and then I'm going to move it so it's off the stage here. Okay, so this is the first frame of my ball. Now to create a tween, what we want to do is to drag out the frame that we've made. I'll drag this out about 10 frames or so. I'm on frame 40. I'm going to drag this out to frame 50. Now to create the tween, now that I have drug out this frame, I come over here to the frame controls, and I see now that the Add Tween button is highlighted. So I can click on that, and it creates a dotted line that goes across here. If I now go to the last frame of that tween, I can drag this ball down to where I want it to go at the end. Okay, now you see that the dotted line turns into a solid arrow. If I now press the play button, the face draws itself, the text appears for a moment, and then you saw that the ball came across. But it doesn't look very natural. It's just going in a straight line. One thing that I do need to do is to take this text layer and extend it out. I'm going to do the same thing also with my smiley face. So now it's going to exist on multiple frames as I go across here. I'm going to make some changes to this ball. The tween is already set up, but I'm going to make it a little bit larger and move it so it's just hitting the bottom here. But instead of making this a straight line, I need to make it look more like a parabola. I also need it to accelerate and decelerate. So if I go a few frames in here, I can take this and move it over a little bit and slightly up. And so you notice now it's coming to the side before going down. Same thing here. Each time I'm moving a little bit further, a little bit faster. Okay, let's see that. So I'm just scrubbing the timeline myself. It's coming across and down, making more of a parabola. You saw what I just did there, didn't you? Adding a little bit of physics. So parabolic arc with acceleration. And now let's extend this and make the ball even bigger so it now becomes essentially surrounding the face. I'll drag this out, let's say about another 7 seconds. Go to the end frame. Ooh, my face disappeared. We're going to have to extend the frames on that as well for the frame and the text. Okay, and come to the frame here with the ball. Drag it up so it's in its right position. That is a big border. The border also expands as you do this. Okay? Then I also need to make this more of a parabola. Anytime I move the object, it creates a new keyframe. Okay, here we go. I think I'll also move the text down a little bit. I'll start just in the very first frame of it. And let's make a key tween for it. Go to the last frame and move it down. Okay, so now the text is going to move as well. Okay, let's watch this whole thing. Okay, eyes do their thing. Ball comes in and bounces as the text moves down. It's looking pretty good, except that it ends rather suddenly. Let's extend the very end here and kind of have it pause on the end. We can do that. So I'll take this and let's move it out here to 65 frames, extending out and essentially pausing. And let's try the animation one more time. Okay, looking good. And there you have it. Smiley Face Productions.
There's just one thing here that's not very realistic. This ball looks like a bowling ball. It's hitting the ground without doing any kind of squash and stretch. So let's add that and then we'll be done. Coming back here to my ball layer, I'm going to play this down. As it's moving along here, I want it to stretch out a little bit. So if I choose this, I can stretch it down but also squish it out just a little bit here. I'm going to stretch it out a little bit more here. Then when it hits the ground right here, it needs to squash. But it needs to squash exactly when it hits the ground. I'm going to go one frame further and move this down so it hits the ground, but now squash it. That means squishing it out while I'm also pulling it. And have it hit the ground. Then it bounces up. As it bounces up, I need to stretch it. Again, it's rebounding. All right, now let's see what it does. I'll push play. Boing. Got to make the sound effects. Boing. Now the final thing that we need to do is to export this. To do that, we'll go up here at the top in the upper right hand corner. This is where we open new files, open files that are existing, export the files we've already made as a video or some other format, or just save them in the .wick file format. Let's save this first. I'm just going to call it my project and then give it a date and timestamp. I'm also going to export it. Now there are different choices. I can export this as an animation or make it interactive or just do audio only or do this as a sequence of images. Now in this case it's just a straight up animation. So I'm going to choose video here instead of an animated GIF. Now it's not interactive, but if I had included sound, which I can import sounds here, and then we'll save it as a .mpeg4 file. If I go to resolution options, it's already set to be the highest possible quality resolution. And then I can go ahead and just say export video. Now again, it's going to call this my project, MPEG-4. It's going to take it a moment. So I'll have to go to my downloads folder and give it a new name. And then I can use it for any kind of video editing that I want to. I can also do a preview of it here. There's playing. There are many types of linear animations that you can make with Wick Editor. It doesn't just have to be about the physics of bouncing balls like you just saw. Here are a few more examples. You can create an animation of plate tectonics and continental drift for an earth science project, starting with a stationary blue ellipse for the oceans and adding new layers for each continent, starting them all together to form the supercontinent of Pangaea the way it was 250 million years ago. Then show the continents drift apart over time with changing text describing the action. You can create an animation of a nuclear chain reaction, showing how one neutron bullet causes one uranium-235 atom to split, releasing 2 more neutrons and growing exponentially to form an explosion. There are infinite possibilities. You can use Wick Editor to show your mastery of many science concepts. If your teacher asks you to create a project, why not consider making an animation with Wick Editor? It will be your chance to learn valuable media design skills. My next video will walk you through how to create interactivity with Wick Editor. First, you'll create buttons with rollover effects that then allow you to jump to different parts of the timeline. I hope you enjoyed this training video. Thank you for learning.